I murdered my husband in cold blood, but the cops pinned it on the homeless guy they dragged in off the street. Because who would suspect a sweet old grandpa like me? I'd been rotting in this wrinkled skin for weeks, plotting every cut and lie, all while the real killer, my best friend, laughed from her penthouse, sipping champagne on the money she stole from us both. And the worst part? I did it all with a smile. Because revenge isn't about justice, it's about watching them choke on the truth you forced down their throats. It started in the sticky heat of a Nashville summer, the kind where the air hangs heavy with cicadas and unspoken regrets. I'm Layla Harper. Or at least I was 28, sharp as a switchblade, working as a junior accountant at Vanguard Financial, one of those glass tower firms downtown that chews up dreams and spits out bonuses for the suits at the top. My husband, Jake, was the golden boy there, climbing the ladder like it was greased with his charm. We had the American dream boxed up neat, a two-bedroom craftsman in East Nashville, weekends grilling ribs on the back deck, and talks of kids when the timing felt right. But timing's a bitch. And so was Sarah Klein, my college roommate turned best friend forever. Sarah was the one who introduced me to Jake at a sorority mixer back at Vanderbilt. She had that effortless glow, blonde waves, laugh like wind chimes, and I was the gritty sidekick, the one who balanced her checkbook and covered her bar tabs. "You're my rock, Lay," she'd say, slinging an arm around me after one too many shots. We graduated. She landed a gig in PR. I buried myself in numbers. Jake proposed 6 months after we started dating, on the rooftop of the Parthenon with fireworks popping over the city. Sarah was our maid of honor, toasting us with tears in her eyes. "To unbreakable bonds," she said. "Lies taste like cheap tequila going down." The betrayal hit like a freight train on a foggy morning. Jake came home late one night, reeking of bourbon and her perfume, something floral and expensive, not the vanilla I wore. I confronted him in the kitchen, our granite counters gleaming under the pendants like they were mocking me. "It's nothing, babe," he slurred, eyes dodging mine. "Just stress at work." But I knew. I'd seen the texts on his phone, the late-night meetings logged in the company calendar. Sarah. My Sarah. She'd been gunning for partner, and Jake was her shortcut, sleeping his way to the top while she whispered sweet nothings about promotions. I didn't confront her then. No. I played the long game, because that's what you do in the South. Smile through the grit. Instead, I started digging. Late nights at the office, poring over ledgers that didn't add up. Vanguard was cooking the books, funneling client funds into offshore shells, padding exec bonuses with ghost profits. Jake was in deep, signing off on transfers I could trace back to Sarah's pet projects. But the real kicker? The murder. It was Mr. Hargrove, the firm's founder, a silver-haired tyrant with a mansion in Belmead and a temper that could curdle milk. He caught wind of the audits, internal ones I'd quietly escalated, and threatened to expose everything. Jake panicked, begged Sarah for a fix. She fixed it. All right. One accidental fall down the office stairs, staged as a heart attack gone wrong. Hargrove was gone before dawn. His death ruled natural causes. But I knew. The security footage I'd hacked showed hands small, manicured, giving that final shove. And me? I took the fall. Not for the push, but for the cover-up. Sarah planted forged emails in my account, making it look like I'd been the one siphoning funds to pay off Jake's gambling debts. Jake testified against me in the quiet plea deal, whispering to the DA that I'd always been unstable, The judge, a golf buddy of Hargrove's old guard, slapped me with 5 years probation and a felony record. My career evaporated like morning dew. Jake got a slap on the wrist and a promotion. Sarah? She stepped into Hargrove's shoes. Queen of the corner office, toasting her rise with the very champagne Hargrove had stocked in his mini-fridge. That's when the secret buried itself deeper. Grandpa Ellis, my mother's father, a moonshiner turned mechanic who'd raised me after Mom OD'd when I was 10, had always whispered about the old ways. Blood calls to blood. Girl, he'd say, chain-smoking camels on the porch of his clapper house in the Smokies. He'd left me his journal when he passed 5 years back, yellowed pages filled with rituals scraped from Appalachian folklore, symbols inked in faded blue. One entry stuck, the candle vigil. Lighted at witching hour. Whisper the name thrice. What walks in ain't always what you call. I dismissed it as grief-fueled ramblings, but desperation's a hell of a motivator. For months, I left that candle burning, a plain white pillar from the dollar store, in the bay window of our old house. Jake had wanted to sell it after the trial. Call it bad juju, but I clung like kudzu. Every night at midnight, I'd light it, murmuring Ellis Harper, come home. Not for guidance. Not at first. For spite. To remind myself there was something bigger than this hollowed-out life. Jake mocked it, called me witchy woman, but he still came home every night, guilt gnawing at his edges. Sarah sent pity cards, signed with hugs and kisses, like we were still sisters. Then, one storm-lashed Tuesday, everything shattered. Rain hammered the roof like God's own tantrum, thunder rattling the panes. I'd lit the candle as usual, its flame dancing wild in the draft. Jake was late again, some client dinner with Sarah, no doubt. I paced the living room, floorboards creaking under my bare feet, the journal open on the coffee table. The air thickened, ozone sharp, and a knock echoed slow, deliberate, like knuckles on coffin wood. I froze. No one knocks at midnight in a downpour. Peering through the curtain, I saw him, stooped shoulders under a sodden duster, face shadowed by a fedora pulled low. But those eyes, piercing blue, like chipped ice, were Grandpa's. Heart slamming, I yanked the door open. Wind howled in, snuffing the candle's flame in a hiss of smoke. Grandpa, my voice cracked, a whisper swallowed by the gale. He stepped over the threshold, dripping rainwater like tears, and the world inverted. It wasn't a swap you see in movies, no flash of light, no vertigo spin. One moment, I was staring into those familiar eyes. The next, I was blinking through roomy vision. My hands, his hands, gnarled and liver-spotted, lifting to touch a face that was mine but lined with exhaustion. The door slammed shut behind us, or him, and the room spun back into focus. What in the hell? My words came out gravelly, laced with the Kentucky drawl Grandpa never lost. I stumbled to the hallway mirror, the antique one with the chipped gilt frame, and there he was, Ellis Harper, 78 if he'd lived, staring back with my eyes, dark, furious, young. Across the room, in my body, Grandpa, no, me, straightened, flexing fingers that used to type ledgers and cradle Jake's head. Layla girl, he rasped in my voice, soft and southern sweet. You called. I answered. But this ain't right. Panic clawed up my throat, but it emerged as a wheeze. What did you do? He, she, shook their head, my blonde bob swinging. Ain't me.
Child.
The vigil opens doors, not swaps souls. Something twisted it. Then, eyes widening, they clutched at the chest. Jake's comin'. I feel it. And Sarah. She's the key. That's when the real hooks sink in. Grandpa's memories flooded me like moonshine burn, flashes of his youth. Bootlegging runs through hollows. A war wound that ached in rain. But buried deeper, a secret that curdled my blood. Grandpa had known Hargrove back in the 70s, when Ellis ran numbers for the man's daddy, a crooked sheriff. Hargrove's old man had framed Grandpa for a moonshine heist, cost him a decade in Brushy Mountain Pen. Ellis got out, swore vengeance. But life, Mom's addiction, my birth, buried it. Until now. You gotta fix this, Grandpa urged from my lips, voice trembling. Sarah's the thread. She's Hargrove's blood, illegitimate daughter. Hit it to climb. Jake's her pawn. Always was. The betrayal layered like kudzu vines. Sarah hadn't just stolen my husband. She'd inherited the same ruthless vein as her father, the one who'd crushed Grandpa. And me, I'd taken the fall for their empire. Scapegoat for sins spanning generations. Sirens wailed distant. But it was Jake's headlights, slicing the rain, that yanked us back. He burst in, soaked and wild-eyed. Sarah trailing like a shadow in pearls and a trench coat. Layla? Who's this old coot? In Grandpa's body. I straightened, bones popping like gunfire. Evenin'. Son. Name's Ellis. And you. You're the boy who broke my girl's heart. Jake's laugh died quick when Sarah stepped forward. Her eyes, Hargrove's eyes, narrowing on me. What is this? Some plea for sympathy? After what you did? I smiled then, Grandpa's tobacco-stained grin stretching wide. What I did?
Darlin'.
You pushed a man to his death and pinned it on kin.
But tonight?
Tonight. We rewrite the ledger. The tension coiled like a spring as Jake herded us into the living room. The candle relit by Grandpa and me. Its flame steady now, mocking the storm outside. Sarah perched on the arm of the couch, legs crossed like she owned the place, which, in a way, she did now. Jake poured bourbon, hands shaking, offering me a glass. I waved off. Liver shot.
Boy.
Can't handle the fire like I used to. They thought I was some doddering relative. A loose end to tie up. Big mistake. With Grandpa's memories came his cunning, the kind honed in prison yards and backroom deals. I watched them, cataloging ticks. Jake's averted gaze when Sarah touched his knee, her fingers lingering possessive. We need to talk about the trial, she said smoothly, voice honey over gravel. Layla's probation, it's a risk. One wrong move, and the feds dig deeper.
Grandpa.
In my skin, sat silent, playing the part, but I caught the fire in my eyes, his steel. We'd whispered quick in the kitchen while they shrugged off coats. The swap wasn't permanent, but it held till dawn unless we balanced the scales. Vengeance, the journal implied. Blood for blood, or at least truth carved out. So I started small, controversial as a lit match in dry grass. Y'all remember Hargrove's fall? I drawled, leaning forward in the armchair that swallowed Grandpa's frail frame. Jake choked on his drink. Sarah's smile froze porcelain. Ancient history. Old-timer, she said. Why bring it up? 'Cause I was there. Lie one. But Grandpa's stories filled the gaps. Saw the whole thing from the vents, HVAC guy. Fixin' the ducts. Small hands, red nails like blood on snow. Shoved him clean. The room went tomb still. Jake's glass slipped, shattering on the hardwood. You're lying. Am I? I pulled the journal from my grandpa's pocket, where I'd stashed it earlier. Flipped to a sketch. Hargrove's office layout. Vents marked in faded pencil. Ellis here drew this after a job. Knew the place inside out. Sarah's laugh tinkled forced. Coincidence. And who are you to him? Anyway, your granddaddy's ghost, I said, locking eyes. Come to collect on a debt your pa never paid. Her face drained ghost white. Jake babbled excuses, but she cut him off, rising like a queen dethroned. This is insane. Jake, call security. No need. Grandpa's voice from my throat, calm as a loaded gun. We got proof. Emails. Timestamps. Layla kept copies before the plea. It was a bluff. My laptop was fried in the storm, but it landed. Sarah lunged for the journal, but I was faster. Grandpa's arthritis be damned. We grappled. Her nails raking my arm, his skin tough as leather. Jake pulled her back, yelling, but the damage was done. The candle tipped, wax spilling like tears, and the air hummed electric. That's when the first decision hit, controversial.
Raw.
I could end it there, dial 911. Let the cops unravel the thread. But justice? That's for suckers.
No.
I wanted them to feel the cage closing, inch by suffocating inch. Leave, I growled. Both of ya. But know this, tomorrow, the world hears Hargrove's real story. And yours. They fled into the night. Taillights red smears in the rain. Grandpa collapsed into my body, exhausted, whispering, proud of you, girl. But the swap. It's hung Aaron for more. Dawn crept gray, the swap holding fragile as wet paper. We talked then, souls mismatched in flesh, about the secret Grandpa buried. He'd confessed to me once, half drunk, that Mom's OD was an accident. Hargrove's sheriff dad had planted the pills. Payback for Ellis snitching on a graft ring. I'd carried that weight silent, just like I'd carried Sarah's shove. Generational rot. He called it. End it, he urged. For her. For us. By noon, I was back in my skin, the reversals snapping like a rubber band, painful, disorienting. Grandpa gone, but his fire lingered. I drove to Vanguard. Badge long expired, but the lobby guard waved me up. Rumors flew fast. Sarah's office door was ajar, her pacing silhouette frantic on the phone. Fix it.
Jake.
Bury the old man deep. I stepped in unannounced. Won't work.
Sarah.
Ghosts don't stay buried. She whirled, composure cracking.
You.
How? Family tradition. I slid a USB across her desk, Grandpa's journal digitized overnight. Cross-referenced with Hargrove's old case files I'd pulled from public records. The betrayals she'd hidden, her parentage. The funds she'd laundered through Jake to fund her campaign for city council. Run for office on lies? Voters love truth. Her eyes darted, cunning. Cornered. You think this ends me? I've got friends. Power. Power crumbles. The tension peaked here. Heart pounding. As she circled the desk. Close enough to strike. Controversial choice, too. I could have walked. Let lawyers duel. Instead, I leaned in, voice low.
Confess.
On video. Or I leak it all, your daddy's sins. Your shove. Jake's complicity. Your empire? Dust. She laughed bitter. But tears tracked mascara. You destroy us all. For what? Pride. For the fall I took. The life you stole. Minutes stretched eternal, her breathing ragged. Then, nodding, she hit record on her phone, confession spilling, the push, the frames, the blood ties. Jake's name dropped like an anvil. I left with the file, emailing copies to the DA, the Tennessean, even a blogger who hated white-collar crooks. By evening, headlines screamed, Vanguard heiress confesses in corporate murder plot. Jake turned state's evidence for immunity, snitching on layers of fraud. Sarah? Indicted. Her penthouse raided at dawn. But revenge's aftertaste is ash. Weeks later, as I packed the house for a fresh start, maybe Seattle, away from the ghosts, a knock echoed. Not midnight this time.
Jake. Hollow-eyed.
Clutching divorce papers. I loved you.
Lay.
Swear it. Lies, I said. But my hand shook signing. Controversial mercy. I let him walk. No countersuit. No alimony drag. Some chains you cut yourself. The climax came unbidden. A month on. Sarah's trial, circus of suits and flashes, hit its peak when the twist dropped like a bomb. Defense attorney, slick as oil, presented new evidence, Grandpa's journal, forged addendums claiming Ellis had masterminded Hargrove's death back in the 70s. A revenge plot spanning decades. My confession video? Doctored. They said. Deepfake tech making Sarah's words mine, fabricated in a basement hack. The courtroom gasped. DA faltered. And Sarah. From the stand, eyes gleaming triumphant. Layla's grandfather wasn't a victim. He was the monster. Killed my father to cover his tracks. This whole thing, her vendetta, generational madness. Truth inverted in a heartbeat. Grandpa's secret, his prison stint, the graft snitch, twisted into murder rap. My vigil, painted as summoning a killer's spite. Jurors swayed, whispers of crazy southern witch rippling. Sarah walked mistrial, buried files, her friends in high places pulling strings. I sat in the back, numb, as she passed, murmuring, blood calls to blood. Layla. Always has.
Bi kịch có hậu.
You decide. I burned the journal that night. Candle smoke curling like accusations. Jake vanished. Suicide note in a motel. Pills like moms. Sarah? She won her council seat. Smiling from billboards. The queen unchallenged. But in quiet moments, I feel him. Grandpa's rasp in my laugh. His fire in my spine. The swap ended. But the haunt? Eternal. And if I light another candle?
Well.
Some doors stay cracked for a reason. No, that wasn't the end. Endings in Nashville are like country ballads drawn out, laced with whiskey sorrow, always hinting at a sequel. After the trial, I holed up in Grandpa's old Smoky Mountain cabin, the one with the sagging porch and views of mist-shrouded peaks that made you feel small, insignificant, like the sins of the world couldn't touch you up there. But they did. News trucks camped the dirt road. Locals who'd once nodded hello now crossing streets, muttering about that Harper witch. My phone buzzed nonstop, reporters sniffing for the real story, old colleagues offering pity coffees laced with schadenfreude. I ignored them all, holding up with a case of PBR and Grandpa's moonshine still. tinkering in the shed like he taught me. Distilling truth from lies. One copper coil at a time. The swap's residue lingered, phantom aches in joints that weren't mine. Flashes of 70s Knoxville in my dreams, neon-lit bars. Hargrove Sr.'s cruiser lights pulsing blue. I'd wake sweating, convinced I was him, trapped in that frail shell again. Was it mercy or curse? Grandpa had given me the tools, but the twist in court stripped them bare. Sarah's lawyers, hired guns from D.C., the kind who lunch with senators, hadn't just forged pages, they'd exhumed records, painting Ellis as a lifelong grifter. His prison time? Not payback, but justice for a string of heists. The graft snitch? A ploy to lighten his sentence. Even Mom's OD twisted, influenced by her father's criminal shadow, the deposition read. I drove back to the city one fog-choked morning, the Holston River sluggish below, mirroring my mood. Needed closure, or fuel for the next burn. First stop, the cemetery. Grandpa's plot under a crooked oak. Weeds choking the stone. You lied to me, I whispered, kneeling in the damp grass. Tracing Ellis J. Harper. 1945 to 2018. Or they did. Which is it? No answer. Just a crow cawing judgment. Next. Jake's grave, fresh sod over a pauper's plot, courtesy of his friends who cut ties quick. His note, leaked to the press, couldn't live with the weight. Forgive me. Lay. Forgiveness? A joke. He'd borne nothing, danced on my ruin, bedded the blade that cut us. I spat on the dirt, controversial as flipping off a funeral, but damn if it didn't feel like exhaling. Sarah's office loomed last, Vanguard's tower a monolith against the gray sky. Security buzzed me up, gossip mill had me blacklisted, but curiosity's a laxative. Her assistant, a mousy kid with nervous tics, stammered, MS. Klein's in a meeting. I waited, perched on the lobby couch, flipping through Forbes like I belonged. When she emerged, flanked by two suits, pearls gleaming, I fell in step. Walk with me, I said, voice steady. She stiffened but nodded, dismissing her entourage with a flick. Elevator descent hummed tense, mirrors reflecting us. Me, gaunt in jeans and flannel, her, power-suited, Botox smooth. You lost, she said finally, arms crossed. Move on. Lost? You cheated. The doors dinged open to the garage, her sleek Audi purring weight. Grandpa wasn't a killer. You know it. She slid behind the wheel, but paused, engine idling. Doesn't matter. Narrative sticks. Voters eat underdog stories, me. The orphan climbing from shadows. A smile, sharp as glass. Your shadows. Controversial decision 3. Get in the car. Not smart, red flag waving, but rage is a blind navigator. I climbed shotgun, the leather creaking accusation. Drive. We talk. She did. Weaving through downtown traffic, past honky-donks and murals of Johnny Cash strumming Eternal. We ended at Percy Warner Park, leaves turning bloody under November chill. Ironic.
That.
Trails empty. We hiked the Cane Connector. Her heels swapped for flats from the trunk, me leading like I owned the woods. Tell me the truth, I demanded, stopping at an overlook, city sprawl distant, insignificant. About Hargrove. Your push. She lit a cigarette, Marlboro Red, uncharacteristic, exhaling slow. He found out.
About me.
Bastard kid from a fling with his secretary. Wanted me gone. Said it'd tarnish the brand. Her voice cracked. Just once. I shoved.
Panic.
He hit his head wrong. Wrong enough to frame me. You were convenient. Weak link. Probation bait. She flicked ash. Eyes hard. Jake? He was mine first. College. You stole him. The betrayal looped infinite. Not just theft, but erasure. I'd been the placeholder. The patsy in her script. And Grandpa? Why drag him? Insurance. Dug into your file, his record screamed motive. Generations of grudge? Jury ate it. She crushed the butt under heel. Power stories? Layla. I write mine. I lunged then, not violent, but raw, grabbing her collar. Faces inches. Rewrite this. Confess again.
Full.
Or I scream it from every rooftop. She wrenched free. Laughing wild. Scream. No one listens to losers. But fear flickered real. Electric. We parted there. Her speeding off. Me hiking back to my truck. Resolve hardening like cooling metal. That night, in the cabin, I lit the candle again. Not for summoning, for clarity. Flame danced, shadows whispering. Grandpa's voice echoed faint. Truth's a blade.
Girl.
Wield it double-edged. The revenge escalated subtle. American style. Leaks. Not bombs. Anonymous drops to whistleblower sites. Vanguard emails. Sarah's DNA matched to Hargrove's estate docs. Jake's affair logs timestamped to board meetings. Pundits picked it up. Fox versus CNN slugfest. Corporate queen or killer heir? Protests brewed outside City Hall. Blue-collar Nashville rising. Chanting justice for the fall. Sarah's poll numbers tanked. Her smile strained on late-night segments. But power fights dirty. My truck's brakes failed on a mountain curve, pads worn thin. Mechanic said. But I smelled sabotage. Cousin Tommy, a gearhead in Knoxville, confirmed. Lines cut clean. Controversial call for arm up. I bought a Glock from a pawn shop in Gatlinburg, legal in Tennessee. Background check, clean despite the felony, and slept with it under pillow. Candle sentinel on the sill. Sarah struck next. Boulder. A process server at dawn. Defamation suit. Millions in damages. Claiming my slander cost her election shot. I laughed in the lawyer's face. A burly guy with a Vanderbilt tie. Tell her. Settle by confessing. Or I countersue with everything. He smirked. She's untouchable. You? Yesterday's news. Not quite. I lawyered up, pro bono, from a legal aid firebrand who'd lost her brother to white-collar greed. We fired back, discovery motions unearthing more dirt. Hargroves will contesting Sarah's claim. Twist building. Tension ratcheting like a noose. Climax brewed in a dive bar off-Broadway. Neon buzzing, honky-tonk central, air thick with stale beer and regret. I'd tailed Sarah there, neutral ground. She thought, for an off-books meet. She arrived solo. No entourage. Nursing a Jack and Coke at the Scarred Oak bar. I slid onto the stool beside, ordering sweet tea to mock her. Truce, she said. Not looking. Truth. I slid my phone across. Recording app open.
Spill. All.
She downed her drink, signaling for another.
Fine.
But you delete after.
Lies.
But I nodded. Words tumbled. Her conception. Hargrove's indiscretion, hushed with payoffs, the shove. Graphic. His gasp echoing in her nightmares. Jake's recruitment. A honey trap from day one. I loved him, she whispered. You were collateral. And Grandpa? Innocent. Surprise there.
Genuine.
I twisted it. Needed a villain bigger than me. The bar faded. Just us in confessional glow. My heart thundered. Victory sour.
Human.
Controversial pivot. I stopped the recording. Deleted it live.
Why?
Mercy. Echo of Jake's note. But not free. Resign. Disappear. She searched my face. Then nodded.
Deal.
Dawn found her letter on my doorstep. Resignation. Full admission to the board. Vanguard imploded. Feds swarming. Sarah vanished to Costa Rica. Whispers of a beachside villa. Untried but unbroken. Or so I thought. Back at the cabin. Unpacking groceries. The knock came, midnight sharp. Door creaked open to empty porch. But the candle flared unlit. Footsteps inside. Slow. Grandpa.
No.
Sarah. Wild-eyed. Gun in hand. Jake's Glock. Stolen from my glove box. You think mercy wins? She hissed. Chambering round. It's weakness. The struggle blurred. Lamp crash. Table splinter. My nails raking her cheek. Shots wild. One grazing my shoulder. Hot bloom. I wrestled it free. Finger on trigger. Her face inches. Pleading now. Controversial endgame. Pull?
Or.
I didn't pull. Not then. The gun clattered to the floorboards, skittering under the rocker like a guilty secret. Sarah crumpled against the wall, sobbing, not crocodile, but gut-wrench, makeup rivers on her cheeks. Finish it, she gasped. Please. Temptation sang siren. One squeeze. And the cycle snapped. No more frames. No more ghosts. But Grandpa's rasp echoed. Vengeance chains you.
Girl.
Breaks the collar too. Controversial absolution. I helped her up, bandaged my graze with kitchen towels, brewed coffee strong as tar. We sat at the scarred pine table. Candle between us flickering judgment. Rain pattering the tin roof like hesitant applause. Why? I asked. Voice raw. After everything. She stirred sugar endless. Spoon clinking. Hargrove's blood.
Cursed.
He beat my mom. Paid her off to vanish. I clawed back, for her. But it twisted.
Ich mit Mina.
Hargrove's ice thawed. You get it. Taking the fall. Carrying sins. The secret unburied fully. Her mom's diary. Mailed anonymous post-resignation. Pages of bruises.
Payoffs.
A girl born in shame. Sarah's climb? Not greed. But reclamation. Jake? Collateral? Like me. I framed you because you were pure, she whispered. Untainted. Had to soil it to rise. Layers peeled. Betrayal reframed. Not malice pure, but desperation's daughter. Still. The shove. The lies. Unforgivable. Debatable. Like arming teachers or banning books in Tennessee hollers. I nodded slow.
Go.
But if you surface. Won't. She rose. Coat clutched. Pausing at door. Thanks. Layla. For not. Dawn broke bloody. Her taillights fading into mist. I burned her mom's diary with the candle. Ashes to wind. Secrets to soil. Wound stitched at a clinic. Hunting accident, Doc winked. News cycle churned. Vanguard bankrupt. Execs in cuffs. Me painted vigilante saint or meddling fool. Depending the spin. Months blurred. Seasons turning. I sold the Nashville house. Pocketed enough for the cabin's fix-up. New roof. Solar panels. Off-grid American dream. Self-reliant. Took freelance gigs. Auditing small biz from a laptop on the porch. Rocking with the Haints. No Jake. No Sarah, just me. And echoes. But the twist lingered. Festering. One crisp fall eve. Hiking the foothills trail. I found it. A shoebox buried under Grandpa's favorite hemlock. Coordinates scratched in his journal margins. Dug frantic. Dirt caking nails. Unearthed letters, yellowed. Tied red ribbon. From Hargrove Sr. To Ellis. Post-prison. You snitched.
Boy.
But I respect the play. Half the graph's yours. Meet the hollow. Midnight. Grandpa's reply. Tucked inside. Keep your blood money. But know this. Your son's next if he crosses family. Truth reversed again. Grandpa not victim. Not monster. But mirror. He'd played the game. Held the grudge. But never pulled trigger. Hargrove's death? Sarah's alone. The frame on me? Her echo of his sins. Cycle unbroken. Just past Baton. I confronted the empty woods. Yelling till hoarse. You set me up? No answer. But wind sighed through pines. Almost apology. Back home. Candle lit one last time, not vigil, but funeral. Flame consumed the letters. Smoke curling prophetic. Ending? Debatable as hell. Sarah surfaced months later, email from a burner. In therapy. Costa Rica's boring without enemies. Write a book. I didn't reply, but smiled. Jake's ghost? Faded. Forgiven in fragments.
Me?
Stronger. Scarred Layla Harper. Survivor of swaps and shadows. Some say revenge poisons the well. Others, it's the only draft that quenches. Light your candle, reader.
See what walks in.
But beware, the reflection might not be yours. Nights now. I leave the window dark. No more calls. Just stars wheeling cold. And the quiet certainty. Everything changes instantly. And nothing ever does.